Hi guys, and welcome back to me Darkroom. For those of you that watched the last video, you know that I was out and about on around the beach with two cameras, a Leica MP and a Olympus OM20. The OM20 had a 28mm lens on and the MP had a 50mm lens on. I took both cameras out to get a few photographs. The idea was to try and get some interesting compositions with a foreground subject and also a background subject as well, or mainly looking at background subjects and bringing something in the foreground of interest. And I'll come out with quite a few nice photographs. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link in the description right now. So if you haven't seen that, jump on there or just continue watching me making a couple of prints in the darkroom. Real simple stuff, not too much jiggery pokery. Everything seemed to have come out tickety-boo. So let's get on and I'll show you this darkroom session. I'll see you in a short while. So one of those photographs come out really nice, which was the one of the bench that I'd like to make a print of. It was the one taken on the 28mm lens, which was the Olympus OM20. So I'm going to make a print. Stick around guys, I'll show you how I make a print in the darkroom. There's the negative there, right at the end. I don't often like the negatives when they sit at the end, the ones I want to print, because it just seems more trickier to get in the carrier, you know. And before I carry on, I've got to say a massive thank you for Dane for sending me these two lovely prints all the way from Port Griffin in Pennsylvania, the USA. He sent me a nice little letter and he took these on the Bronica ETRS. And he's not been long in the darkroom, and I think these prints are great that he's done. So well done, Dane. These look fantastic. Thanks very much for sending them to me. So most of the shots that you saw me take were taken around about f11 and f8. I think one or two is about 5.6. But you can get even more creative if you start shooting a shallow depth of field. If you were shooting 1.8 or maybe 2.8, and if your shutter speed allows you to shoot in that lighting condition with those apertures, you can get whatever your subject is, get a nice foreground subject as well and blur it right out with a nice shallow depth of field. That could get even more creative for you. But I was deciding to go with f8s and f11s. I didn't really want my foreground subject to be completely out of focus. So here it is, the 28mm shot of the bench. I just liked it. I like the way I composed it. Got it right coming off in the corner here perfectly. This one's okay, but it's just a nice picture. I quite like it. I love a bench anyway, you know. I like sitting on benches and just watching time go by. But there it is there, projected on the easel. I've already done a little tiny focus test, and it's very fine grain, this Acros 100. Can barely see it, especially in that D76 stock. It's a replenished developer that I've been using for probably the last few weeks now, and just keep topping it up a little tiny bit, and it's been going really well for me. And this paper I'm using is 16 by 12. You can see I've set the image in the centre of that, so I'll have a nice heavy border around it, putting a 2.5 grade filter in there to start my printing tests off with, or my test strips. That's what I'm going to work with. Let's pull the aperture down. It's wide open at the moment, don't need it that bright. 2.8 f4 5.6. Let's go 5.6. I don't need to do any dodging and burning, I don't think, with this print. Let's do some tests. So to do some test strips, I've got no smaller paper of the same, so I'll have to cut a piece of this 16 by 12 up, which is needs must, you know, have to do it. I usually buy a smaller set of 5x7s of the same paper that I can use, but that's okay. This one sheet should last me for a few prints. It's quite an easy print to work on, so I don't contemplate on wasting too much on test strips. Let's have a quick look where I want to place it. So on this negative, I've got sky going on. I've obviously got the bench, which is a bit dark, and the ground as well. If I do a test strip straight across, I've got all different tones. So I'm going to start off with the bench and do a test strip across the bench and see where I want to go from there. And then have a quick look at the sky as well. Let's have a look. So I'll put it there across the two benches. This paper's a bit curly, so I'm just going to put some clamps on it to hold it down flat. And just increments of 2 seconds. 4, 6, 8, and one more 10. So there's 10 seconds over all my test strip. Let's have a look, see how that comes out. And from there, I should be able to see near enough where I want to be. And in it goes to my developer. Now this developer is about a week old. I haven't been in the darkroom for about a week, and I only used it on a few prints when I made it fresh about a week ago. It's been in the shed and it's been quite cold in the UK, so there's no reason for this to be exhausted already. I can use it again, and as you can see, it's working straight away for me. That's coming out quite nice. So we'll give that about another minute, get all those blacks working, and then we'll stop and fix and have a look at a test strip. And there's my test strip there. So this was 2 seconds, 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. 6, the benches look okay, but the sky is a bit too white. 8 seconds, just 2 more seconds on that sky, and it's starting to come through nice, and it hasn't blackened out the rest of the image either. So that's looking okay. So I'm going to do another test strip right across the whole print at 8 seconds and see how that looks. There's my test print there at 8 seconds. So I did right. I've just got detail in the sky. You can see there's detail there in the sky. I can see slight clouds, but there's also a difference between the edges or the inertia of the paper and the sky itself. So it hasn't blended into the whiteness of the paper. So that looks nice. I've got detail going on with the bench. I'd like to darken this side of the bench a little bit if I can. So I might do a little bit of burning. And just try and blacken it out so it kind of goes from darker into lighter, if that makes sense, just to make the effect of the bench pop out more. So before I make this print, I'll just make sure that I'm still in focus. Sometimes it can slip out of focus a little bit. Be about right. In goes the paper. So we said 8 seconds on the clock. Here goes the 8 seconds. And I'm going to do my best to try and burn that in freehand. I'm just going to bring this dodge tool right up to the top and then pull it back, so revealing light onto the lower part of the benches, if I can get it right. Whoop, there you go. Just let it burn, let it burn. I'm just dragging it over slightly. I don't know if you guys can see it. I've had to pull my hand and then pull it back. About enough. And it goes into the developer. Hopefully I haven't overburned. Really, I should have done a test on the burning, but I just had a quick hunch on it. Let's see how this looks up. And it's looking nice. So I'll leave it in the developer now for about a minute and a half, just so all those blacks can really come through. Then I'll stop and fix, hang it up and show you guys. I've got a little fly in my developer. And there it is, that's my print now, starting to dry now. You can see I've got detail in the sky all the way along, and also the bench as well. I've just burned that in slightly. If I hadn't have done that, that would have been kind of more grey, and I wanted that to look black. I wanted the light to kind of follow through onto these benches here. I quite like that scene, actually. Would a person made any difference in the background? Not really. I think it might have spoilt it, but maybe a little pigeon or something, or a seagull sitting on this bench might have looked more interesting. But of course, I took the shot because there was no one there. I could have waited for someone to walk into the shot, but to be honest with you, it doesn't float my boat. Unlike when I went to Bahrain a couple of months ago, it was so interesting to see different kinds of people. And the other print I want to make was with the Leica, with the 50mm lens that I was using. And that was of the beach huts with the railings in the shot. I wasn't too keen on the 28mm shot that I did on the Olympus. It just wasn't, the composition wasn't that great, it wasn't nice, but I prefer this one, so I'm going to make a print of this one. I just had to clean the neg. There was a little bit of watermarks on that neg, so I've just cleaned that off with little tiny PEC pads they're called, that I got from silverprint.co.uk. I keep these in the darkroom. These are my gloves and the PEC pads and other cleaning stuff, a little bit of cleaning fluid as well for my negatives. And obviously the rocket blower goes back up there. Let's have a look at this neg. And here it is there. Exactly the same size I'm going to do. Just need to do a little bit of focusing in and start doing some test strips. I can't see any problem at all with this print being, you know, dodging, burning, nothing like that. I think this is going to come out quite nice. This top rail you can see is white on the negatives. That means it's going to be quite dark and black on the print. And this one has just caught the sunlight here. So let's print this and see how it looks. Let's put a test print in. And because I've already done tests already, that's my mate Crimson Obscura messaging me, talking about photography. I talk to a lot of you guys on Instagram and obviously through the comments on YouTube. And I love the conversations I have with people about photography. So, you know, if you do reach out to me, email, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, thanks very much. I appreciate it. I think we're a great community, film community. So I'm happy to be part of it. 8 seconds. Let's do that at 8 seconds. So I'm just doing exactly what I did before. It looks quite bright at 8 seconds actually. I've got a feeling that's going to be too dark. The longer you're in the darkroom, you get more accustomed to looking at the light on the baseboard and your paper, and you develop and you start to get a feeling for how it's all going to come out, you know. I just realised the aperture lens was at f4. So doing 5.6, so that was 8 seconds at f4. That's when I realised. Suddenly looked at the aperture, that's in the bin. So that's where I was before, 5.6, same as the last print. It looks okay. I've got detail down at the bottom. You might be wondering why I didn't do increments. Well, I've already done another negative in the same lighting conditions and the same developer, so it makes sense to try it out. That looks okay. Might be a little bit too dark at the top there, so I'm just going to take just a couple of seconds off of it and then burn the bottom part in for the other couple of seconds to make that 8 seconds up. One more sheet of paper. I've still got some test strips left from that original sheet that I cut up, so that's quite cool. I'll use that on the next session. Some people might be saying, well, you could shorten the paper down and cut it off and use that as test strips because you're using quite a lot of paper for one print, but I like keeping my paper that size. If I want to print inside, I can. So it's just personal choice, but I think it looks quite nice the way it's set in that whole piece of paper. Right, what did we say? 8 seconds, and I just wanted to do a little tiny bit of I'm going to go 6 seconds and then burn in for a couple of seconds at the bottom. So in fact, let's go 5 seconds. Here we go, 5 seconds, and I'm just going to burn the bottom of the print freestyle, leave my hand on it, and then just for what, 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, drift it off to the bottom. Done. Turn that off. And it's quite a nice photograph, this one. I quite like the composition that I did with it. Like I said, the 28mm, it just didn't look right. But this composition worked much better with the 50mm lens. Coming through nice. And this is that print here. Look, I've got a problem with my enlarger, I think. Can you see this? It's nice and sharp here. This was what, f11 on the Leica with that 50mm lens. I should be pretty much sharp all the way along here. This beach hut's out of focus, and this one's in focus. All these trees up here are out of focus. That should all be sharp. So I've got an aligning problem going on because I know the negative is sharp all the way through. So I've just been looking at my enlarger and just done a couple of adjustments. Haven't got it quite perfect, but for now it's okay. I'll show you. And this one's come out a lot better. I'm still a little tiny bit soft up in the bushes here, up in the trees. So I've got alignment issues with the enlarger, which I'll have to try and fix. That shouldn't be too hard. But it's come out a lot sharper down this end and also drifting off over here as well. I love the composition with the railing coming off from here, and meeting at the middle of the frame here. I've managed to get that bang on through that Leica, which I'm getting more used to all the time I use it, and also the railings in the background and the beach huts, which is really the main part of the composition. So I quite like that print. So these are the prints that I made in the darkroom. This one is of the bench. I love this composition that I made, and I think I've nailed this one with the Olympus OM20 and that 28mm lens. I've got quite a nice border going on around this 16 by 12 inch paper, and you can see the print or the image set in the middle of it. I could have trimmed this paper down a little bit and used it for test strips, but I like the way it is. If I want to frame it like that, I can. And the other print there, you can see the other composition I like. I've already spoke about that. It's still drying. Look, I've still got the pegs on it, but I still have to try and figure out what's going on with my enlarger. There's some issues there. Let us know in the comments what you think it is, because I need to be doing a little bit of playing around, I think. And in case you're wondering, the enlarger that I'm using is a DURST M605, a condenser enlarger. I'll put all the descriptions in, I'll put details in the description of this video if you're interested in the equipment that I use in the darkroom. It's pretty simple. For those that haven't been watching my channel for long, I've got a shed in my garden. It's a little bit cold, it has to be heated up with a radiator this time of year. And I've got all my darkroom equipment inside this shed. I have to feed electric in there, I have to feed water in as well, which is done through a hose pipe and a cable that goes to my house. I just plug it in, heat it all up, get the electrics on, get the water pumping through, and then I can just sit in there for a few hours making prints. Does me, and it's not too bad. It gets a little bit cold in the winter, a little bit hot in the summer. Thanks very much for watching, and if I don't make another video before the new year, Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks for everybody watching my video, supporting the channel and all that stuff. I'll catch you next time, maybe in the new year.